Coming up, we visit with award-winning director Erica Tremblay about her new movie starring Lily Gladstone. Plus, a bill establishing a Truth and Healing Commission has passed a key committee in Congress. And a new class of Bush Fellows has been selected. PBS North takes a look at one Ojibwe artist from Duluth. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Lily Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Amirawa Hopa. Thank you for joining us. I'm Aaliyah Chavez. We start today in Northern California, where the Shasta Indian Nation is celebrating a land-back victory. Last week, Governor Gavin Newsom announced the state will return 2,800 acres of land to the tribe, which is just the latest chapter in a painful 150-year history. In the 1800s, the California Gold Rush displaced the Shasta people. Then in 1911, the tribe lost its remaining land base so that the Copco No. 1 dam could be built. Now, the state is removing the hydroelectric dams, and once it is complete, the land will be transferred to Shasta. Chairman Janice Crow called the action a turning point, saying his people can now weave a new generation with the return to culture and ceremony. In Oregon, a first-of-its-kind bill would take much-needed steps to address the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women if it is passed into law. Already, a piece of legislation from 2019 was signed aiming to tackle the issue, but 5 years later and little progress has been made. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek told Investigate West that she has not had a conversation about the MMIW issue in 5 years. Kotek had not read a 4-year-old recommendation report on the crisis, despite having her signature on it, adding that the crisis, quote, got lost in the COVID conversation. Now, State Representative Tanya Sanchez says she is considering new legislation that would declare a statewide emergency as well as other actions. To read much more on these efforts, you can search Oregon Report Identifies Missing Native American Women as an Emergency at ictnews.org. In Alaska, the largest U.S. icebreaker ship will conduct 3 scientific missions over the next few months to study Arctic waters. The U.S. Coast Guard cutter named Healy will carry scientists to the Beaufort Sea to collect information about oceanic conditions, service underwater data instruments, and train Arctic professionals. According to Coast Guard Captain Michelle Shallop, the ship's ability to break through ice up to 4.5 feet thick substantially enhances research capacity, especially at a time when scientific interest in the Arctic Ocean is intensifying due to climate change. Well, Yupik baseball player Cohen Nikolai is representing Alaska in the big leagues. The 2-time Alaska Gatorade Player of the Year performed in front of talent evaluators during the recent MLB Draft Combine. The Combine features top prospects from both high school and college, with Nikolai being a University of Oregon commit. He is the first player from Alaska to appear in the showcase since its inception in 2021. Fancy Dance is a new film following an aunt trying to care for her niece whose mother has gone missing, all while trying to make it to an annual powwow. Oscar-nominated actress Lily Gladstone gives yet another powerful performance alongside breakout star Isabel DeRoy Olsen. Co-writer and director of the film, Erica Tremblay, is from the Seneca Cayuga Nation and made the story and characters set in her homelands. ICT's Paris Wise spoke with her to learn more about the movie.
Erica, the heavy subjects covered in the film are present-day and ongoing issues for Native communities such as MMIP and ICWA. With Lily and the whole cast, really, when did you know to push down these emotions versus push out?
What we wanted to do was focus on these two characters who are going through something very traumatic and very tragic, but that their love for each other and their community and culture helps them persevere. And, these topics have been topics that Hollywood has confronted with like non-Native creators. And we really wanted to have Native people be the center of this film versus, let's say, like a white cop coming in and trying to solve a murder. We wanted to center the Native characters who are surviving this thing happening and really showcase their humanity.
Well, Lily's character, who is Jax, digs herself deeper and deeper, it seems, as she desperately tries to hold everything together. I would love to know your thoughts on the dilemma of her trying to do the right thing, but it seems to get worse since there are so many barriers within these systems.
Lily's a very layered character because we as Native people are layered, and oftentimes the system is set up in a way that like you can't fill out the right form, or you're hours away from being able to go talk to somebody that you need to talk to. There are no FBI field agents in the region, and so like you're unable to like get the answers that you need, and that puts us in a very desperate situation. And when you're desperate, you're going to make decisions on the fly often because sometimes you have to. And we wanted Lily to be a complicated character, and we wanted her to maybe not always make the right decisions because that's how human beings are. And you recognize that in her flaws, her intentions are so pure, and that all she really cares about is providing safety to her niece. We as Indigenous people, we deserve characters on the screen that are flawed. We deserve anti-heroes. We deserve to like tell all sorts of different stories about our communities. And so Michelle and I really wanted to focus on, Tawi being a sex worker and Jax having dealt drugs before, because those are realities in our community. But Tawi still deserves to be found regardless of what her job was or regardless of what decisions she's made in life. And oftentimes when our people go missing, we call up and it's like these systems on the other end don't deem our people worthy of searching for. And hopefully by telling a story like this and grounding the experience in humanity, people will be more inspired to like support, our missions of justice in our communities.
You are from the Seneca Cayuga Nation. What did it mean to have the actors speaking your language, and what was that process like?
It was so amazing. While I was writing this script, I was doing a 3-year-long language immersion program in Cayuga, and to be able to hear Gayokono words on the screen and to take this back to Haudenosaunee communities and have people be able to celebrate and see the language spoken in a modern setting with like young characters is so inspirational. We took the film back to some Cayuga elders, and one of them took me by the cheeks and was like, "Good job," and like to get squeezed by an elder and told that you did a good job is like the highest prize that you can get. So we're so grateful that we're able to share this film made for Native Americans by Native Americans with a Native audience.
Erica Tremblay, thank you so much.
Nyawet.
And you can watch Fancy Dance now in select theaters, and you can stream it on Apple TV starting on June 28th.
When I think about the reservation and my life there as a kid, it's a time and a place that I really yearn for because I spent that time with really formative people in my life teaching me what it meant to be Navajo.
As Native Americans, substantial rights under the Constitution and laws of this country were going unenforced.
Those traumas show up in our elders throughout our lives, throughout our parents' lives.
A lot of the history is still impacting us to this day.
There's something really powerful that happens when you articulate an injustice. And at NARF, we do that on all fronts.
The Native American Rights Fund is the oldest and largest nonprofit law firm.
Fighting alongside our tribal communities to defend Native American rights.
I see the difference that it makes with our Indian people.
We are facing really challenging times. The right to vote has been under siege.
Without voting, every other right in Indian country that matters falls.
So it's really important to have NARF standing with our tribal people to define voting as part of the fight for tribal sovereignty.
Anytime Native American voters are in a position to swing elections, that's when you see the most egregious violations of their voting rights.
And so we responded to that moment. The Native American Voting Rights Practice Group arose with this rising anti-democratic movement that has been happening across America.
The voting rights litigation that we do is tough. The facts are tough. They're very personal to our voting team, but our wins are big. And we win all the time.
We have to be vigilant in terms of protecting our rights, just like we have these last 53 years.
In order to make good on the promise of America, we have to make sure that every Native American can vote and have the ability to effectuate change in their communities. I think that's the way that we collectively move forward.
The Native vote matters because it's important, because it makes change in all of the states we work in.
When our ballot box achieves justice for Native people, that's when we as a country can really feel faith in our institutions.
This election year, NARF will be leading the fight to protect Native American voting rights in states across the country. Follow along as we tell our stories from reservations, communities, and on the front lines of democracy. Now is the moment. Join us.
A bill to establish a federal Indian boarding school Truth and Healing Commission has passed committees in Congress for the first time. The progress was hailed by backers of the bill who looked back and looked forward. Stuart Huntington has more on this landmark legislation.
The bill would establish a federal commission to conduct a full inquiry into the assimilative policies of U.S. Indian boarding schools and provide a report with a list of recommendations for justice and healing. Ruth Anna Buffalo from the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition said the moves in Congress were welcome.
This is so important for Indigenous communities and tribal relatives because it gives, and the country, it gives voice to those who were directly impacted by boarding schools and to the countless of missing children who never returned to their families.
The bill has passed a House committee and is headed for more hearings. In the Senate, it was reported out of the Indian Affairs Committee and could move to a floor vote. Representative Tom Cole was there at the beginning when Native lawmakers first got behind the effort.
I want to particularly single out my friend Sharice David, who is, a Ho-Chunk Indian, and we co-chair the Native American Caucus together. She represents, she's a Kansas representative, and I would be remiss not to mention Deb Howland, because this all begins with us and Mark Wayne Mullen. We were all four Native. I used to say when they were all there, we had the most balanced political caucus. We had two Republicans, two Democrats, two men, two women. We hope this uncovering of part of our history, the flashlight on, is a healing thing that helps us come to grip, but we hope it also helps the broader culture understand that there have been abuses and overreaches, and we may be the great melting pot of global history in the United States, and we are, but we don't expect Irish Americans to give up their Irish heritage and traditions to participate. We don't expect Italian Americans to have to do that. There was a point in our history where we did expect Native Americans to do that, and these boarding schools were instruments of that. So understanding the pain that was inflicted on individuals, the losses when sometimes children were literally forcibly separated from their families and certainly from their tribes. That's a story we need to know, and so that we never do this again.
And that those affected are never forgotten.
These are people's lives that we're talking about, and this is the justice that we're seeking for those who have passed on and who didn't receive justice and healing. And so we're keeping all of the survivors and boarding school relatives front and center and close to our hearts throughout this entire process.
Stuart Huntington, ICT News.
announced class of Bush Fellows features 6 Indigenous people. These 1- to 2-year grants are awarded to outstanding individuals living in the Dakotas and Minnesota. One of them is Miri Villard, an Ojibwe artist from Duluth. She says she intends to use the funds to go to graduate school and promote a public art project. Our friends at PBS North have this Minnesota Historia program on her work. Take a look.
Prior to the mural project, this walkway was all beige. Wonderfully beige. You can see remnants of the beige over there. The entire thing always gave me prison vibes. But in a way, like the beige contributed to that. It made this not a space where you could picture anything good happening, I guess.
Welcome to Minnesota Historia. I'm Haley, your host to history, and this is the Chief Buffalo Memorial Project.
I really felt like this space could promote being able to have a broader perspective and understanding and picture of the history that we all share here.
This is Miri Villard, a visual artist in Duluth, Minnesota. She collaborated with Chief Buffalo's eldest descendants and many other artists to make this project happen.
Zeitgeist Center for Art, they reached out to the Indigenous Commission. Indigenous Commission submitted a list of topics. I don't remember what the other topics were because it was just like, Chief Buffalo, I'm doing this.
You see Miri's work all over Duluth. She often uses art to uplift underrepresented narratives. And Chief Buffalo's narrative is seriously underrepresented.
You know, I'd heard the name Chief Buffalo kind of tossed around, and I knew we were on ceded territory, but I wasn't sure what any of that really meant. I feel like most people don't know, you know.
I didn't know. And Chief Buffalo's story is the origin story of downtown Duluth. But good luck finding him on any of the historical markers in the city, or its public art. Until now, obviously.
Yeah, Chief Buffalo, let's backtrack. How do we start it?
Chief Buffalo was born on Madeline Island around the year 1759. 1759, that's before the Revolutionary War. At the time, Madeline Island was supposedly a part of New France. New France. Of course, we have to acknowledge this was all Ojibwe land. That's why the United States had to make so many treaties.
This wall is still in progress. It's a map of the different treaty territories. Anywhere you go in the United States, it's like there's some sort of treaty that is the law of the land that allows it to exist. Treaties don't give rights to Native people. It's actually the opposite. It's the tribes giving rights to settlers, basically, to exist like in the same space as them.
Chief Buffalo led the Lake Superior Ojibwe for nearly half a century, signing a series of treaties with the United States between 1825 and 1847. Minnesota Territory was established on March 3, 1849, and Minnesota became a state May 11, 1858. In between those two dates, you will not be shocked to learn that a lot of nefarious happened.
So Minnesota's still a territory. They've got written into law plans to remove Ojibwe people from Minnesota because they're like, look at all this land, like this is gonna be ours. They come up with this scheme and it's like, it's documented, like they intentionally moved the point at which Ojibwe people could get their allotments, which were like, you know, food rations and things like that, because obviously they're like blocking Native people from accessing the land and using it themselves. So they need allotments and rations for food. They moved that point up to Sandy Lake.
Sandy Lake is not close to Madeline Island or Lake Superior. It's not close to anything. Look, I'm sorry if you live there now, but at the time, its remoteness was the whole point of it.
It's hard to picture when you're talking about it, like, oh, they had to go for a walk to this place. Well, it was months of walking, you know? And so people went on this journey, they get there and the food was intentionally like poisoned. It was literally rotten food. And so people died from that. And then they had to make the journey back and over 300 people end up dying on this journey. It was called the Sandy Lake tragedy or the Ojibwe Trail of Tears, killing people off like slowly. All intentionally orchestrated by the Governor Ramsey, who a lot of our places are named after. And so Chief Buffalo saw this. He's about 90-something years old. He decides he wants to do something about it and gets the support from all the different tribal communities in the region to make this trip to Washington, D.C. to tell the president, this just happened. Our people are being killed here and we don't want to be moved anymore. That pictograph that's right there was the pictograph that he carried on his journey to Washington, D.C. Symbolically, It's basically a representation of all the different tribal leaders kind of like signing off, so their hearts and minds connecting to the crane. A lot of people think that the crane represented Chief Buffalo, but he was actually Loon Clan. You see the strand that's coming out of the eyes, basically, the vision of the crane connects to whoever is holding the pictograph. And so Chief Buffalo is the one that is holding the pictograph. And so the art is like this moving piece that like whoever holds it is the voice of all of the folks there. So along the way, people hear about this elderly man going on this quest. And so people are like expressing their support, and word gets to the president, and the president meets with him. And in that meeting, we get the Treaty of 1854, which establishes a lot of the tribal reservations that we have in our region across Minnesota.
The Treaty of 1854 guaranteed that Ojibwe people would not be moved west at a later date. They also retained their rights to hunt, fish, and participate in traditional activities. Of course, Minnesota ignored that part of the treaty until they were sued.
Then on the red, you see the different reservations, essentially.
Please note that downtown Duluth is not in red on this map. In 1854, Chief Buffalo was given his choice of land in northeastern Minnesota.
I think Point of Rocks was the point at which it was kind of like, look out from here and from this spot to this spot. And what now is Duluth, the president was like, here's this plot of land, and you can use it, you know, for whatever you want. It's Chief Buffalo's reservation. He ended up, I think, giving that plot of land to his son-in-law, Benjamin Armstrong, and then from there it's kind of like, what happened? I don't know.
Yeah, it gets murky. According to the Duluth Herald, someone sprinkled an unidentified powder into Armstrong's eyes while he was asleep. He went blind. Seeking money for medical treatment, he sold off his land to several traders. At least one of them never even paid him.
There's a lot of different stories about, you know, what went on, but essentially we're in Duluth now.
Which brings us to 2018, when the Duluth City Council renamed Lake Place Park, a forgettable string of nouns, to Gitche-O-Dea King, which means a Grand Heart Place.
And so that was another initiative by the Indigenous Commission that took almost a decade to get through to the city that this would be renamed.
The Chief Buffalo Memorial Project began the following year on a beige walkway that connects Gitche-O-Dea King to the Lake Walk.
I think once the naming of Gitche-O-Dea King happened, things started like setting into motion in ways that people maybe didn't expect, which is the significance of an action like that. Something as simple as changing a place name suddenly piques people's interest enough to support a project that moves the park a little bit further down, or that recognition further down.
Did you do this? This feels like maybe a rice field.
Yeah, it is. So ricing, we got a powwow, a sugar bush on the side.
Yeah.
I didn't do all of them. I have help, so community helped paint this one. We've got 2 artists from North Dakota who came up and did this.
Oh, yeah.
When I do mural projects, we spend a lot of time as like tour guides telling people what is the significance of this project and answering questions. So we have the Thunderbird, a water panther, and so they're like Ojibwe sort of mermaids. We did this community painting session. We got the loon for Chief Buffalo. This is Herb Pinde and his son, Ricing. This is a youth at a powwow. Jonathan Thunder and Tashia Hart. I wanted it to be immersive, and I wanted it to not just talk about like Chief Buffalo, but like there's pieces that are like people who are alive here today. I think it's Arnie Vinio and Jim Northrup at a sugar bush, but it's just their feet. So, and then secretly, kind of back here, this is Chief Buffalo smoking his pipe. The Buffalo family also really wanted Chief Buffalo to be remembered in this space, and to see something about his story here, because he does have that kind of Duluth connection. So yeah, that's why Chief Buffalo's murals are here.
We send our thanks to PBS North for that piece on Bush fellow Mary Villard. It was produced by Mike Schultz with photography by Steve Ash. Hayden Eidenschink is the host. Well, languages are among our most valued resources. Ensuring that they are preserved and taught is important in Indigenous communities and here at ICT. We're continuing our Language Break segment, which features native speakers from across Turtle Island, sharing their beautiful and bold words and phrases. Today, we bring you the Blackfeet language from Oscar-nominated actress Lily Gladstone.
Nitsika tai gitsi. Nitsika tai gitsi means I feel the good in what you've done. Nitsika tai gitsi. Nitsika tai gitsi. I feel the good in what you've done.
That is a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.